Welcome everyone to our December UDRC Advisory Board meeting. So just a reminder, these we have two of these that happen every year. One in the second quarter of the year, and then the second one in the second quarter. Our previous meeting was May 21st, and then our next meeting will be at the end of the second quarter of 2025, which again will be around May. The meeting minutes for the last meeting in May of 2024 were communicated in this invitation. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns about those minutes from our last meeting that we need to discuss as a group? Okay. Seeing none, we'll just move forward with administrative updates then. I just wanted to let everyone know, for the first time since 2022, we are fully staffed. So that's great news for us. There are two individuals who finish out our group, and that's Brittany Johnston and Swathi Kukunarapu. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Brittany and Swathi for introductions. So go ahead, Brittany.
Yeah, hi, I'm Brittany Johnston. I recently came from the University of Arizona in Tucson, where I was a research analyst at the Native Nations Institute. I'm also currently a PhD student there. My research is about Indigenous women in the workplace and the educational and cultural supports that help them succeed. I previously worked in Utah at the Department of Workforce Services and at the Utah Data Research Center, where I managed the user experience. So I'm happy to be back with some familiar faces and helping communicate and visualize the great research we have.
So reporting to Brittany is Wei. So our UX group is now fully staffed. So if you'll remember, Zach Barris was the individual who used to manage the UX group, and Zach left several months ago, and we were able to finally backfill his role with Brittany. So we're really happy to have her. So Swathi, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, Jeremy. Say hi, everyone. I hope everyone are doing good. So I am Swathi Kukunarapu. I recently joined the team as senior data engineer. Before that, I worked as a data engineer for 5 years with TCS, and my job primarily includes like collecting the data and cleaning and it. So basically, I primarily build the systems which process the data efficiently. And I'm happy to be here today, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts and ideas. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Swathi. So Swathi reports to Jay, and again, with her being hired, our data engineering group is finally fully staffed. So that is composed of Jay, who is the assistant commissioner, and then Sarina and Swathi. So, okay. So moving on to updates to the SLDS grants, also known as Bridge, so our Bridge project. So we have two major things that we're focused on for this at this point in time, and those are requirements. So thank you all so much for assisting us in drafting the business requirements and providing feedback. That feedback is really instrumental into obviously creating a system in the future that is optimized for all users, including our data partners, which are going to be obviously very instrumental in ensuring that this it runs well. So we're coordinating internally to review your feedback, to categorize it, and then to provide it back to all of you, and then to make amendments to the business requirements in order to align all of that together into a final version. Once that's done, it will be communicated to our third-party vendor, Burwood, who will then update the technical requirements to be aligned with the final business requirements. So in general terms, we think that the business and the technical requirements are 95% aligned. So the business requirements and the feedback that we received from a data partner, luckily, were not strongly material. We had some really great feedback that's really going to, again, improve the system and the final look and feel and functionality of the system, but none of it was, material. So that's really great news. We feel like we had a really great first draft of the business requirement, and the feedback we received proved that to be the case. So moving on to the next component of the project that we're focused on, which is the legal framework. So we completed our legal framework summary with your assistance. Thank you all so much again for providing invaluable feedback and insight into sort of what does that summary need to include in order for us to have a good strategy for creating a legal framework that will allow us to do what we need to do in the future in a legal way. So we ended up with 4 components for that legal framework. So formalizing MOUs, operations, and systematic. So the first step will be obviously to initiate and complete formalization, which will be sort of understanding the current legal structures and frameworks around the data that we're trying to share, privacy rules and regulations, and lastly, the consent considerations that we'll have to take into account for in the future. So all of that work will be starting here in December, and we'll be reaching out to all of you to go over the strategy for how we're going to want to formalize all of this work. So you'll have a chance, obviously, to provide feedback to how we're wanting to move forward with all of this. In general terms, the first step will be to meet with our point of contacts, discuss that strategy, and the second step to that will be to meet with your legal and privacy groups to have an initial conversation about what are we trying to do, and is there a legal avenue for us to accomplish that work, and kind of understand the lay of the land associated with your data. So I've had conversations with all of you about all of this in general terms. Here pretty soon we'll have more specific conversations about it in the coming week or two. So, any questions so far before moving on? I just wanted to provide an update to all of you here about the research agenda for 2024 and 2025. So just a reminder that this research agenda started in July of 2024 and ends in June of 2025. So that means that we're about halfway through. Starting in January of 2025, we will work on a new set of research agenda items. So remember that we split our research agenda into two blocks, block 1 and block 2. So we're currently working on priority number 6, as well as number 4 and number 3. Items number 1, 2, and 5 will be starting work on in January of 2025. Although these are in priority order, we do also have to take into consideration whether or not we have the data available. Obviously, we didn't have the data available for ASQ and educational outcomes in July of 2024, and so we had to move that over to the second block, even though it is our number 1 priority. So so in January, we will start working on those items that I've just described. And we're really looking forward to getting work underway, especially as it relates to the ASQ items. So Rick, we've been having discussions with people like Dakota and so on about what do we actually want to study as it relates to ASQ and educational outcomes. So we left it pretty nebulous as is right now, but we're going to be more specific about what does that mean and how is that going to look in the coming starting in January. So okay, so that segues nicely into the next topic that I wanted to remind everyone about, which was the research agenda for 2025 and 2026. So this will begin, the research agenda for 2025 and 2026 will begin in July of 2025. And I wanted to remind everyone of the process of getting from now until July of 2025 when we have that research agenda in place. So traditionally we would reach out to all of you around April, and we would we would start discussing internal research topics in April, and then we would reach out to all of you in May for research topics. Then June, we would coalesce topics and prioritize, and then we would send it out to our advisory board members to review. And then in July, we post the research agenda and start working on those items. So I have had feedback from our our data partners in the past, to the extent to which they feel as if maybe they didn't have enough heads up about the research agenda, and they felt a little bit with less time in order to create research agenda items or topics for us in May. So I wanted to just remind everyone that in January through April, or really January through May, until when we reach out to you for research topics, you're more than welcome to start having internal discussions about research topics. And if you want us to send an email in January reminding everyone, we'd be more than willing to do so. So this is sort of a PSA, just a reminder that in May, we're going to be reaching out to all of you for research agenda items for the 2025-2026 research agenda, and so that you can start having those internal discussions ahead of time so that you have research agenda topics. I think this applies a lot more, I think, to USBE, Aaron. I think in the past, because of the way that you have to go through specific structures in order to get those research agenda items recommended. So here's your reminder. So thumbs up. Great. Okay, moving on to other administrative updates. So we are adding an additional step to the data request process, and we wanted to let everyone know. So currently, data partners, or historically, I should say, data partners are not notified when a data request has been fulfilled. You are obviously notified when a data request has been submitted, and we let you know of the data request, and we give you an opportunity to provide feedback and to give your perspective on those. So none of that is changing. What we're adding now is when the UDRC does send a data request or fulfills a data request, we're going to be providing a notification to our data partners, letting them know that has been completed and that your data has been a part of a packet of data that's been communicated. Because the time between data requests and being told of the data request and data submission to the requester can actually be sometimes months. And so we wanted to sort of remind you about that and let you know that your data is being utilized. So we will be creating an email template, and we'll sort of fill in the information as we release data in the future, and you'll be receiving those emails letting you know that your data has been used for a specific data request. So it's more up to date. So. Item number 2 on this administrative update of systems is the fact that once our phase 5. Yes, Rick, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to trying to be polite, and I wasn't having much luck with this software. Sorry, I'm just not used to it.
No problem.
Quick question. As we go through these administrative updates, are these applicable to both Bridge as well as the more traditional UDRC processes? I'm just trying to understand, like when you talk about redistribution of data, I want to understand whether that applies to the potential Bridge equally with the traditional UDRC.
Yeah, actually, great question, Rick. I'm going to actually start adding in these administrative updates a little indicia telling you what this applies to, because that makes complete sense now. Thank you so much for pointing that out. When I say data partner data use notification, this is for UDRC legacy. This is for our research optimized system. For Bridge, you will have a much more sophisticated notification system where you will log on to a user interface and you will be able to see all the information on a minute-by-minute basis in a systemic and automated way, rather than here's an email that we send out to you. So yeah. So this next topic also applies to UDRC legacy. So with the completion of the version 5 UDRC warehouse, which Jay will speak much more in detail here in the next update component, we are now at the point where we are able to grant access to your de-identified data. So in the case, for example, of DWS, it would be wage record data. And obviously, it sort of dependent on what data partner you represent. And then we wanted to open the ability to request access to de-identified data from another partner for your own internal research purposes. So this does not apply to anyone other than our data partners and the partners that communicate data to us. So those are one and the same. So we are wanting to provide the ability for you to let us know that you want access to another data partner's data, de-identified data. There will be a process for that other partner to be notified and for the other partner to approve that. If the approval is in the positive, then we would grant you access to the de-identified data from another data partner for your own research purposes, so that you can obviously conduct research that is valuable to your organizations. So we're working on creating a process for how this is going to look. Technologically speaking, this is very easy and simple to execute. This is more of a procedural and a operational component that we have to sort of create. And you will be part of the process of creating that new SOP or that new process. We want everyone to make sure that they feel comfortable and they feel safe in this environment, and that it makes sense for everyone here. Yes, Aaron.
Just kind of following up with that, maybe it's with the SOP as we go forward, but are you envisioning that this is like a time limited, hey, you're going to have access, you go in, take a look at it, and they'll kind of come forth with the questions predetermined, and then that's kind of the review process. Is that what you're thinking will happen? And then I'm going to follow up is, do you think, and this is just generally for the group in meeting here, and I'll review this with Scott as well, as the approval process. Do we think that this group during the advisory board is adequate for that approval? Do you think it's, this is kind of the general question. I just need to put in my notes to share with Scott, because if we say, for example, USB Data and Statistics Director Aaron Bruff approves and we're done, my board is good with that. I'm just kind of sharing with the group if you guys have thought about that. Just something I want to take to Scott and for the discussion. So thank you.
No, these are all great questions, Aaron. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take the current model, which is someone requesting access to UDRC data, de-identified UDRC data. What does that currently look like? Well, it currently looks like them filling out a form. It currently looks like sending it to our data partners for review, and so on. So we're going to take that model and we're going to see what makes sense and what does not make sense to include in a situation where the data requester is a privileged data requester because we're talking about a data partner. So someone who contributes data into the UDRC asking for data for another data partner. And the reason for that is going to be exclusively research, operational related research. And so therefore, because of that, there are specific privileges that research or that request is endowed with. And so we're going to look at all that, look at the current process, suggest a new process. I do think, Aaron, that I would probably say that there does not even need to be any sort of approval, rather than approval of the process as a group here. We would all agree to the process. And similarly to how we do right now with UDRC requests, as long as it meets the sort of the aegis of the UDRC, as long as it meets the purpose of research that we are able to provide data to, then I think that we could just obviously provide notifications, and that should be sufficient enough for us to then provide you access to that data. The one thing that's a little bit different is that when UDRC releases data, we do a secondary disclosure check. In this case, what we would have to do is we'd have to ensure that the data partner is doing its own secondary disclosure check before sort of communicating research findings internally or to an external audience in the form of some sort of research document or what have you. So there might be some sort of agreement to having to do that, like we currently do with our when we release data. So that might be something that we have to incorporate into this as well. So But more to come on this. Obviously, there will be an SOP. You will get a chance to review it and agree to it. I think we need unanimous agreement that this is something that you want. And if we can't achieve that, then it's something that we will not pursue. So, okay. All right, final update, administrative update is on HB 244. If you will remember, this was the bill that sort of added additional language for OLAG to be able to use UDRC data for their purposes. I want to sort of provide a final update on this, a formal final update on this. We coordinated with OLAG. They reviewed our MPI process. They're satisfied that the MPI process will meet their auditing purposes. And so OLAG has confirmed that they will be using de-identified data for their future auditing purposes. So we will not be releasing identifiable data to OLAG because the de-identified data is sufficient for their auditing purposes. So I just wanted to let all of you know, provide a final update on that, a final formal update on that. So questions, comments, or concerns before we move on to the technology update. Great. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Jay for our technology update.
Thank you, Jermas. Hello, everyone. So in UDRC Legacy, in 2024, we were able to implement all the core and crucial components of the system, and it is operational now. By core and crucial components, I want to refer to the ingestion process, the de-identification process, and the storage of de-identified data within GCP system. In 2025, moving forward, we are focusing on re-implementing the following outstanding components, which includes the automated warehouse operation and the data request process. Currently, my team and I are processing the data that we have received from our partners. As you can see, we have processed data from USPE, which includes student master, enrollment, high school cohort, student test, SCRAM, SAGE student test, and VIDA student test. Currently, my team is also working on processing the larger data set, which comes from USPE, which is the student courses. And up until now, we have processed the beginning years of the student courses data. And next, we are planning to process the ASQ data after we have completed all the USPE data processing. We target to complete all the data processing by early January of 2025. And once that is done, we will work with our data partners to give them access to all the integrated data that we have received from our partners. We will be coordinating with all of you to ascertain who should have access for QC or internal research purposes.
And just to be clear, that this is not what I just discussed. This is just your own de-identified data. So, you know, yeah.
And that's UDRC Legacy. UDRC Bridge. On the first year, we have been able to achieve the task that we had scheduled for the SLDS grant. And currently, we are working on creating a strong architecture for the UDRC bridge system. And we are also working to implement infrastructure for the system. So we will be able to handle and give out the PII data that we are receiving from our partners moving forward with the bridge project. And in the UDRC bridge system, we are currently working with our data partners to integrate all the feedback that we have received from them. So that's all the update from UDRC Bridge. Any questions from our partners on UDRC Legacy or UDRC Bridge? No questions? Okay, thank you. So that's all the technology update from my side. I would like to pass on to Ari for research updates.
Great. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
So before I turn it over to the researchers, I just want to say this has been a great year so far for research. Like every previous year, I think, with the UDRC. And I just want to take a moment to thank Karen, Connor, and Alicia for all their hard work, which you're about to hear about. And additionally, their commitment to doing such great research and really representing the UDRC well. So Karen, would you like to start us off with our research update?
Sure. Thank you, Ari. So this first research we're looking at is the RA19, and this looks at the outcome for charter school students. A draft was sent to the data partners, and we received feedback from USBE, USHE, and DWS. And I'm working on implementing the feedback. And once that is completed, this report will be sent to comms for the next stage of review. And after that, we'll be formatting the final report and then developing a data narrative for this research. And the next research that I'll talk about is RA24, and that is looking at the outcomes for STEM students. And we'll be looking at their education and workforce outcomes, and also identifying any leakage during the pipeline. So right now we have met with our data partners initially, and I have completed the data collection. And right now I'm just building the models and developing some visualizations for that pipeline that we're talking about. And once we're done with that, we'll meet with the data partners again, present our interim findings. And then after that, we'll be writing a first draft and then going on to pre-review after. So I'll turn the time over to Connor.
Thank you. So this first slide is talking about previous research looking at cost of living. It's focused on UG graduates between 2015 and 2020 and the proportion able to afford quote unquote basic needs the first year after graduating. The basic needs into consideration items such as housing, food, transportation, childcare for households with children, student loans, and then other necessities. The analysis and consideration different household types or sizes and different areas in Utah. This analysis is complete, as well as the so the analysis and the report is complete. The data narrative currently with the UX team. The next step is to just publish a report, a data narrative, which will be happening sometimes in the next couple of months. Next slide, please. This slide is currently talking about the research that I'm working on, which is changing employers and wages. Changing employers and wages has been found to increase wages for individuals that change employers. Furthermore, the relationship considers the wage difference for employers entering and exiting the workforce to compare how those individuals change. So, right now, I am implementing data partner feedback and working on the first draft. This should be soon, probably within the next month or so, and then it will be going through the internal review and finally working on the data narrative for publishing. I will hand it now off to Alicia.
Sorry, before we go to Elisa, are there any questions on Karen's or Connor's research?
Hey, so I'm going to talk about a few different projects here. First is RA17. This is about graduation or post-graduation pathways for nursing grads. And so this study describes some of the labor market and educational outcomes for graduates of nursing at all levels. So from CNA all the way through BSN. And these pathways include returning to school, as well as employment, sectors of employment, and wage growth. And this one is really close. There are just a few loose ends to tie up, but publication of the report and dashboard should happen very soon. So this one will be complete. Next slide, please. And then next I'll talk about RA 21, which is on prior learning assessments. And in this case, prior learning assessments covers AP and CLEP, since that was what we had data for primarily. And this project examines the relationship between AP and CLEP and post-secondary outcomes, including first-term GPA, time to initial degree, and dropout rate, and contributors to those. This one is also very close. The report has gone through comms, and the dashboard is in the final stages. Next slide, please. Currently, the project that I'm in the middle of is RA 22. This is on engineering pathways. It's somewhat similar to the project on nursing pathways, but it also includes a USB-E component. So here we're looking at the preparation that students with an engineering credential receive in high school, as well as their workforce outcomes at different award levels. And right now, the SQL review has been complete. The analysis is in progress. And so the next step would be analytic review. Hopefully that one will happen pretty soon. RA 22 had to take a bit of a pause though, because of, next slide, please. A2. So this is a project on educational and workforce outcomes by program. And this grew out of an OLAG request that then through a whole process became an analytic series product. So this looks at enrollments, completions, re-enrollments, workforce placement, and wages for every program at every institution. And so it took kind of a while, but this one is a highly anticipated one. The first draft is complete, and it's awaiting review. And I believe that's it. I'll turn the time back over to Ari.
Great. Thank you, Alicia, Connor, and Karen. Are there any questions on any of the research before we move on? Great. We'll turn the time over to Brittany now and our UX team.
All right. So for our UX update, if you can move to the next slide. So we had 3 data narratives that were released in 2024. This includes the gender wage gap for women of color that came out in September, the return on investment of USHE awards that came out in June, and then median wages before, during, and after COVID-19 that came out in March. We had a total of 660 views on those data narratives that were released in 2024. The most popular one was the return on investments of USHE awards, which is, you can see the screenshot there on the slide. So thanks to Wei Lee for her great work on that one. And also thanks to Zach Barris for his work on the other 2 data narratives. So overall, for the UDRC website, we received 3,800 active users, or visitors, I should say, and 10,000 total page views on the website. So for the upcoming year, we have a plan to implement a new product release plan that will include a public webinar for our new research products. So we will be proactively reaching out to new audiences that may be interested in the specific research that's coming out beyond our usual stakeholders. So we hope to spread more awareness about our research, increase awareness, and more visits onto our website. We'll also record the webinar and post it on our website so it can be accessed after the fact. We're also continuing to build data narratives. The next ones that should be coming out will be the prior learning assessments and the nursing pathways. We also have the cost of living for Utah graduates coming out, and that one we're looking at specifically working on a new data narrative look and feel. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. That will be coming out with the cost of living research. So those are our summary updates. I look forward to sharing more next time. Are there any questions or comments about UX? Okay, I'll pass it back to Jeremiah so there are no questions.
Okay, great. All right, now I think it's time for public comments. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I'm not certain if I see anyone from the public here in this meeting today. So I think we're gonna dispense of that, or I should say, if there's anyone from the public who wants to provide any questions, comments, or concerns, now's the turn. Okay, great. Seeing none. So that's everything we had for today. Any outstanding questions, comments, or concerns from our data partners or our board members today? Okay. All right, thank you all so much. We appreciate it. I know that we're in contact with all of you often, so your lack of questions is not a huge issue for me. We talk almost on a weekly basis, so and there are a lot of questions are posed, especially by Aaron. Thank you, Aaron, for always asking questions and bringing things up. So thumbs up. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday coming up. Bye bye.